Some states have made compliance with ICE mandatory, but Wisconsin is not one of them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Would requiring counties to comply with ICE help prevent these repeat offenders? So you perhaps heard the story up in Russ County where you had a repeat offender drunk driver, ran a truck driver off the road. He's now dead. 3 daughters no longer have a father. By requiring compliance with ICE, could some of those situations be caused to not occur?
Absolutely. We struggle as sheriffs under the current law with even maintaining somebody just on an ICE detainer. Once their crimes have been resolved and we have no additional reason to hold them, the detainer, as is written today, does not allow sheriffs to hold somebody for ICE so they can continue that process. In addition, there are many agencies that have told me they will not comply with ICE. Period. And that tells me that individuals are breaking the law, and whether that be federal or local law, and they're getting away with it. And what does that tell? When you're not holding somebody accountable for their crimes, that enables them to commit additional crimes. And having that mandate that you must comply with ICE certainly would help be that carrot and stick to make sure that we are holding individuals accountable when they break the law.
Thank you. Mr. Rockwell, so in testimony that we received in Washington, D.C. from Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas, we also had Sheriff Mark Daniels from the border, Cochise County, Arizona there, and they gave 2 diametrically opposed responses to the question in regards to fentanyl coming into the United States. Secretary Mayorkas said it is not tied to the open border. Sheriff Daniels, who is in Cochise County on the border with Mexico, said it has had a direct impact since January 20th of 2021 when we've had these open borders with the amount of fentanyl coming into this country. Which one do you believe is correct?
I believe that it has a direct effect. The fentanyl is flooding in. We talked about it earlier. The gotaways, it's coming through. It's so small, it's so potent that it's easy to conceal. With the resources that it's taken to process all the immigrants coming into this country, I don't know how they could do their job.
Yeah, as you've talked to law enforcement, perhaps other officials, since the day that you lost Logan, have they alluded at all that the amount of fentanyl has increased exponentially over the last few years? Do any of them share that with you?
We have not had much contact with law enforcement in regard to that area, but I undoubtedly it's increasing exponentially.
So since you started your foundation, I'm assuming you've run into that you've had much more contact with families that have suffered the same fate as your family. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, we come in contact with we've come in contact with hundreds, and then in networks. We have contact with thousands of people that are in the same situation that we are.
Do they have a consistent message of how this could have been prevented?
Well, it definitely can be prevented by stopping the source, that's for sure. It's a multifaceted approach, but stopping the supply would definitely help. Thank
you for coming here today. I just want to put a question to Mr. Curtis. So if we have 4 more years of what has happened since January 20th of 2021, is this situation going to get better or worse for the United States of America?
Sir, I think obviously our focus was on one small community, but I think that kind of answers the question that if you extrapolate this across the country, I think there's just been so much focus on large municipalities, whether it's Chicago or New York or Dallas, Phoenix, and those are certainly concerning situations. But if you just look at proportionally what's happening in some of these cities, 1,000 immigrants may not be much in a place like Chicago, but, and the police chief made clear that was a very conservative number based on the number of students in the district. Obviously, as we've talked about this morning, as Senator Johnson pointed out, there are a lot of individuals coming across the border that are single individuals with no children. So the point being, that estimate by the police chief, he has noted himself as conservative. So you have a municipality that's seeing their population increase by 10%. So extrapolate that across the country, and this has devastating consequences. Certainly, we talked about the human toll, but one of the things we focused on in our report is just really kind of the meat and potato of running a local government, right? This is why the city of Whitewater is looking to referendum in spring of 2025 for not only city operations, i.e. the police force, but also the school district. So that's the taxpayers of Whitewater now facing two separate referenda in one spring election because they simply can't meet the obligations.
My time is up, but I want to ask one other real quick question. In your paper, it alludes to discussions were being, that the city of Whitewater wanted to have with the governor's office, and the governor's office insisted on this being a private discussion. Why would that be? Put it this way, did you, were you ever told why they insisted that this be a private discussion and not a public meeting for what is a very public problem?
So first, to be clear, we actually interviewed nobody for this report. We intentionally focused on the 400 records that were provided by the city because it was an objective review. And when I say records, I'm using that in the legal sense, where one record may be an email with numerous attachments. So it's fair to say we reviewed thousands of pages of records in this situation. And so we just wanted to see what the situation was in the words of city officials. Private communications that are obviously ultimately public records. So obviously I'd be guessing as to kind of the motivation behind the governor's office, but it's fair to say I think there maybe was concern with respect to the eligibility that the city had for funding that wasn't available. And obviously I think there was concern that despite all the issues happening, state funding, federal funding was simply unavailable to the city.
Yeah, thank you very much. For those that may be interested, this is a very well-researched document put out by the Institute for Reforming Government. It's worth a read.